Hey guys, it's Ms. Young. We're going to be taking notes over the 7 principles. If you do not have the 7 principles graphic organizer directly in front of you, you need to pause this video and go get one. So the 7 principles. What are the 7 principles of the Constitution? They are like overlying themes that are applied within the Constitution, like you heard me speak about just a few minutes ago. They are very broad, but yet extremely important, and are specifically used to make sure that we adhere to them so that we never end up like the British government and their control over us. All right, so let's move on. So the first principle, okay, so you should see the picture just like this on your notes. The first principle is popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty is our first principle. Go ahead and write that in the box next to it. Okay, we're going to be moving from left to right across those boxes. So this is popular sovereignty. Now popular sovereignty, this is some really, like, sovereignty is a pretty big word. Notice what I've highlighted, pop and reign. When you hear the word pop, you could think of the word population. You might think of the word well, obviously the word popular, as in how much do people know you, right? But you're dealing with people. When you hear the word reign, R-E-I-G-N, you think of somebody who rules over something. So that's basically what this is. It's where the people rule. It's a government in which the people rule, and the people are the American citizens. So write government in which people rule underneath the definition, and here is your example. The way that we utilize the principle of popular sovereignty is because we elect our leaders and we influence public policy. Okay, it's the role in which we play. Okay, we have the power. We can hire you, we can fire you. We can change policies, we can improve policies. It's in the hands of the American people. We have the power. Pause if you need to, move on when you're ready. Oh, there's a cute little picture. All right, your next row. You should recognize this picture, okay, from your paper. Our next principle is republicanism. Republicanism. Republicanism, you might want to get it confused with popular sovereignty, but I'm going to try to give you a helpful hint so that you don't. Republicanism is where people elect representatives. Notice the highlighted portion. They're the same. That's because in republicanism, we elect representatives to make decisions. And if you think back to some of the things we've discussed, like Congress, and how will we be represented under that great compromise, those people in Congress, they are our representatives. Okay, so like our senator, one of our senators right now is Ted Cruz. Okay, so we utilized the principle of republicanism when we voted on him to become one of our senators. Okay, so republicanism is where the people elect representatives to make decisions, like voting on a senator. Pause if you need to, move on when you're ready. All right, our next principle, that should look a little familiar, is checks and balances. Checks and balances. Now, something you may have heard of. I'm going to give you just some simplistic ways to view it so that you don't get it confused with another one of our principles. This is where each branch, that's your legislative, executive, judicial, can exercise checks and balances over the other branches. The advantage of having the check and balance system is it keeps the other branches from getting too much power. It's kind of like when you have 3 siblings, okay? You and 2 other siblings. You want to make sure that nobody gets something better than the other person. You keep each other in check, okay? If you're getting in trouble, you call out your brother and sister to make sure they get in trouble too. There's no sense in them getting away with it and you're not getting away with it, okay? So you kind of can look at it like that. So these branches are exercising a check and balance over the other branches, but they need each other need the other branches in order to accomplish something, and that is on purpose. So an example of this would be the president can veto. Veto means to turn down, say no to. He can veto a bill passed by Congress. So Congress can pass this bill and say, hey, we want this to become a law. And it goes across the desk of the president. The president's like, nope, I don't think so. And that shuts it down. Okay, so if Congress does pass a bill and the president takes a looks at it and says, yeah, this is pretty good, well, then he keeps it going. Okay, so there's a system that you will see. It's kind of like this. Okay, so this image kind of illustrates what the check and balance system would look like. You have to have permission from the other two branches to accomplish something. All right, our next amendment is limited government. Notice the in the parentheses is Magna Carta 1215. Magna Carta 1215 limited the power of the king. This is the first time we see the king is losing some sort of power. And this is important to us. That's why it's one of our favorite things about the Articles of Confederation, was because we made sure that the government didn't get too much power and then turn into a dictatorship again, or a monarchy. So the definition to limited government is that the government may only hold power granted to it by the Constitution. So if the Constitution lists something as a power of the government, then that's a power of the government. If it does not list it, then it is not a power of the government. Only if the Constitution says it can do it is it allowed to do it. So our example here is the government is subject to the rule of law and does not have unlimited government. So the president has to follow all the laws, the senators, the House of Representatives. These people, if they're driving down the road, okay, and they're speeding, legally they're disobeying the law, and legally they should be getting a ticket. Just because they are of the law doesn't mean they're above the law. Okay, so for example, you notice I had the 10th Amendment in our picture box to the far left on your paper. This is a quote of the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So pretty much, let's break this down. Not delegated to the U.S., but not prohibited to the states. Okay, so if it doesn't give it to the U.S. and it doesn't say no to the states, then it is the state's power, or AKA the people. Okay, so a little wordy. You think they could have made it just a little bit more simpler, but again, think back, we're in 1787. Okay, but that's your limited government. It's really simple, more simple than I probably just explained it. Write everything down, move on when you're ready. All right, our next principle is the separation of power. This is thanks to Montesquieu. Remember Charles de Montesquieu, also known as Baron de Montesquieu? He's the guy that came up with the division of power. This is very different than checks and balances. Separation of power is literally the fact that our power of the government has been split into 3 different parts. Okay, you have a legislative branch, you have an executive branch, and you have a judicial branch. They each do different things. Okay, this is not checking and balancing them. That's not this principle. This is just literally that the powers of the government have been split or divided. Okay, so our example here is Congress, President, Supreme Court. Those are your 3 major portions of those 3 branches. Here's another example. Remember Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 of the Constitution identifies the powers of these 3 branches. It does not talk about their check and balancing of each other. This is just discussing the separation of power. Write what you need to, move on when you're done. All right, our next principle is federalism. I'll just give you a heads up. This one's a little bit more difficult. Hopefully this picture kind of gives you an idea. Okay. Federalism is the power that is shared or divided between the federal government and the state government. So if you think of the national government pretty much as an umbrella over the entire U.S. Okay. We have to share that. The state level powers have to share their power with the national government. Yes, we are our own entity, but we are officially under the national government. Okay, so it's that relationship between the federal government. When I say federal, I mean national or central. Okay, but this federalism is the relationship between the federal government and the state level government. So here's our example. Education is required by the federal government. Okay, federal government says you must provide some sort of public education. But the state level government gets to decide what that looks like, and it's the responsibility of the states to implement that education system. It's kind of like taxes as well. Okay, federal government has a certain tax, but each state level government has their own tax powers. Okay, it's that relationship between these two levels of governments. Okay, you can kind of see in this picture, it's just a simplistic childlike illustration, but hopefully helps you understand federalism. Write what you should, move on when you're ready. All right, our final principle is individual rights. This is probably the most simple. Okay, these are any rights that a U.S. citizen has, and they are guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution, every state level constitution, and all federal laws. They protect our individual rights. Okay, our example here is going to be the Bill of Rights. They protect your basic freedoms. We will get more into the Bill of Rights after Thanksgiving break. But it is extremely important to have had this. Okay, think of all the times that Britain violated the rights of American citizens, or of the colonists. Okay, it was very important to us to make sure that we had our individual rights protected, and we put in 10 amendments. Remember, amend means change. So the first 10 changes we made to the Constitution were about our individual rights. Okay, make sure you've wrapped up these notes. And you need to go get some glue. You're going to be gluing these notes onto page 45, not 44, onto page 45 on the right side. You can glue them all the way down. When you go get glue, do not be obnoxious and a distraction. Go grab the glue, glue it down, and go put your glue back away. Move on to the next assignment in the module.